Hideo Kojima is well known in the games industry for his Mr. X betrayals and subversions. In this brief video essay, I'll relay some of my favorite examples, as well as explain why these sudden left turns, so characteristic of Kojima's games, are so well suited to this specific medium. Let's begin. One, stealth. The first place to start has to be with the original Metal Gear. Specifically, how it formally subverted the expectations for a military action game when it was released in 1987. In the opposite from the norm, your goal in Metal Gear was not to kill or engage with the enemy at all. Violence was just the means now, not the ends. Like a good spy story, now the emphasis was more on story and suspense. This made both the gameplay and the wider medium better by expanding the dynamism of interactive action. 2. Getting captured, deceived, and betrayed. Metal Gear 87 didn't stop at subverting genre trappings or redefining military action. It used sudden twists and turns to surprise and entertain in ways unfamiliar to the industry at the time. In one scenario, you had to let yourself get captured. In another, the man that you thought was your rescue target, Dr. Madnar, turns out to be a body double who can kill you. This tendency to pull the ground out from under us was actually made literal by way of Metal Gear's many pitfalls and trap floors. Of course, the biggest example here has to be the revelation at the end of the game that Big Boss, your commanding officer, is secretly leading the enemy force and your unit, Foxhound, at the same time. But I like even smaller examples. There's even a sort of arc to the deceptions in the game, as it ends with a lie that we actually recognize as such. A lie to the world, selling the fiction of what really just went on inside the fortress city, Outer Heaven. Given their importance to actual espionage and clandestine operations, denial and deception only became more central in 1990's Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. Now there were lifelike decoys in the shape of sentries. There were secret keys and false identities. There was even a spy and traitor embedded within your support team, and several bosses who'd we'd learn used to be people that we knew, former allies, and even friends. But the best sense of betrayal in Solid Snake came down to the theme of destiny. The future humans want is rarely the future we receive. Life itself can betray us, and that's a major theme for the game. The betrayal in this sense was the betrayal of history repeating itself, of reality intruding on hope. In the doomed relationship in the game, and the story of how both former lovers met their respective ends, Solid Snake used betrayal to do more than just excite or entertain, but to enrich our experience by making it more narratively complex, more insightful. That isn't to say Metal Gear 2 did not still retain all deception's power as a mechanism of marrying story with gameplay. In the final confrontation, for example, players suddenly found themselves deprived of an inventory. You had to fashion a makeshift flamethrower to take Big Boss down for a second time. Three, Foxdie and the PAL code. Things only got more twisted and subversive with 1998's Metal Gear Solid 1. Betraying the player became more than ever a crucial component to the series. In MGS1, the first two VIP hostages we're supposed to save die. Everything we're told about the situation and setting turn out to be lies, and worst of all, we're so easy and fun to manipulate, even the enemy force gets in on it. When we think we're deactivating the terrorist doomsday device, in reality, we're arming it for them.
You mean you had this plan from the beginning, just to get me to input the detonation code?
Huh? You didn't think you made it this far by yourself, did you?
Who the hell are you?
In any case, the launch preparations are complete. Once the world glimpses the power of this weapon, the White House will have no choice but to surrender the Fox dye vaccine. To me, their ace in the hole is useless now.
Ace in the hole?
The Pentagon's plan to use you was already successful in the torture room. Snake, you're the only one who doesn't know. Ah, poor fool.
Who are you anyway?
I'll tell you everything you want to know. If you come where I am, that is.
Where are you?
Very close by.
Snake, that's not Master Miller.
Campbell, you're too late.
4. Snatcher's Subterfuge. Back in Kojima's first adventure game Snatcher, a major theme was that our eyes can be deceiving, and to never judge a book by its cover. I won't spoil any major examples of how the game lies to you, but there are myriad examples of how we're set up to fail to teach us this valuable lesson.
What? Ah, it's just a crow.
Stupid bird.
To take one, there's a whole mini sequence that plays out before revealing itself to be some kind of daydream. Snatcher doesn't get enough credit in this regard for introducing sensitive topics to a detective investigation game, topics like racial profiling and intolerance. In maybe the greatest of the game's twists, it isn't the ethnic Chinese lowlife Napoleon or the destitute drug-dealing Latino Ivan Rodriguez we have to worry about. It's the Snatchers, who only target affluent, respected members of society, and have certain telltale skin conditions, making them, more than any other race or ethnicity, similar to white, pasty folks like myself. Not that Snatcher is anti-white people or anything. Rather, the game uses betrayals and subverted expectations to expose our own latent Snatchers within, to expose our hidden tendencies as human beings to judge based on the visible, and all too often ignore or forget the existence of the invisible. The Snatchers within are these very categories and stereotypes and pre-assumptions, masquerading as truths, disguising something monstrous and altogether alien. The truth in Snatcher always comes veiled under a disguise. A mask, like the kind you buy to infiltrate a certain nightclub named Outer Heaven. Your robo-companion Metagear is supposed to support you in the field. Mostly though, he just roasts you. You're supposed to be the strong, brooding Harrison Ford type, but Gillian Seed, the player character, is actually an oafish goof who bumbles through the investigation mumbling to himself. The truly cool character isn't Gillian at all, it's his blonde doppelganger, the bounty hunter NPC Random Hajil.
That was close. You're lucky I was here to save your skin.
But by the end, even Random's mystique will disappear. This trick of switching the expected typeset of the player character to an NPC would reoccur throughout Kojima's later games, from 2001's Metal Gear Solid 2 all the way to Metal Gear Solid 5. Dystopia. There may be no greater subversion in pop fiction than the dystopia. It looks like paradise on the surface, but in reality, it's hell. From Policenauts to even Death Stranding, more and more Kojima's games would take on dystopian features to varying extents. Take the exemplary case of Policenauts. Set on Beyond, an idyllic space colony designed to feel like you're living in a California-themed amusement park. In reality, the picture-perfect world of Policenauts conceals quite the opposite of its crime-free, carefree, utopian exterior. Crime is endemic here, and humanity has taken on frightening changes in its mad rush into the stars. Justice and progress become antagonists, while law-abiding society and organized crime become interlinked. Yet again, nothing is what it seems in Policenauts, and former friends secretly plot our demise.
うかつだったわね、ジョナサン。覚悟なさい。
彼。
そのまま受話器をゆっくりと置いて。
わかった。本気のようだな。
変なことを考えない方がいいわよ。銃の使い方くらいは分かってるわ。
どうするつもりだ？
そうね。こっちに来て。キスしなさい。
カレン。
どう？びっくりしたでしょ？
本気だと思った。
はい、あなたの銃返すわね。
But this deception began simply with the basic concept of the game. Hard sci-fi and 1970s-esque cop action have never really been mixed together, but Policenauts showed that doesn't mean that they can't be. Our expectations are rarely accurate glimpses at reality. This was the message Kojima's games would demonstrate time and time again.
カバンは店内に全部で21個。うち1個が爆弾入りだ。これがメリルから預かった本物の LS バッグだ。このカバンと同じものが爆弾の入ったカバンだ。よく見て判断するな。ちょっとでも違うデザイン、柄、大きさのものは最初からこの店にあった偽物だ。偽物は動かしても大丈夫。
この中から偽物を除いていき、爆弾入りのバッグを残せば第一段階終了ってわけか。
そうだ。間違って本物を動かすとドッカーン。
Dystopian settings and themes would re-emerge as central elements in later Kojima titles like The Phantom Pain and Metal Gear Solid 4.
宇宙は第二の故郷とはなり得ない。宇宙は実利的利用や科学的研究のための場でしかない。我々全員がこの環境に適応進出することは過去の絵空事だ。これが今世紀の初めに科学者たちが出した結論だった。
その大きな壁をぶち破ったとでも言うのか。
貴様のような保守的な人間が宇宙開発を語る資格はない。人類には麻薬と臓器のスペアが必要なのだ。神がし忘れたことを代行しているだけ。
The president said that arsenal gear was the Patriots' key to supremacy.
That's as good a description as any.
What exactly is it?
It's a massive data processing system capable of controlling information on a global scale.
A data processing system?
That's right. The system's a social device for maintaining the Patriots' control.
You've lost me.
Well, in this day and age, information emerges from every direction and is freely distributed. A variety of information gathered by servers employing the latest in high-speed communication networks and P2P technology is rapidly circulated to individuals. In fact, the speed of this circulation process is accelerating on an almost daily basis. The Patriots seem to be afraid of this development. Apparently, they believe that their role will shift from dominant to dominated.
Early in the 20th century, the true holders of power in the United States, the Republic of China, and the newly formed Soviet Union gathered together in a secret meeting that would later be known as the Wise Men's Committee. The secret pact they formed there marked the beginning of the philosophers. But the last of the original members died in the 1930s. After that, the organization began to run out of control, and the Wise Men's Committee degenerated into a mere shell of its former self. The philosophers of today have no sense of good or evil. Their influence extends to countries and organizations involved in every aspect of every war. They have become war itself. That's how they operate.
Where does an army without borders call home? A state without borders, of course. A world without borders.
A world without borders.
The Cold War order is about to collapse. The age of electronic intelligence is about to begin. The NSA, CSS, NRO, DIA, etc., etc. The intelligence community that has long bickered amongst itself will be united in a world governed by electrons. Cypher will gather all information, watching over the world and guiding the will of its people, all while they remain blissfully unaware. There will be no one to oppose them. For the first time, the world will be ruled by a single will. Until the new order is in place, you and your army will be the force that protects it.
SOP had another function. To control people's senses. The nanomachines inside soldiers' bodies adapt to different conditions, promoting the release of neurotransmitters, hormones, and stimulants, giving them an edge in battle. They can create an artificial combat high by releasing endorphins at the same time a soldier kills an enemy. Or they can suppress hormones to neutralize the soldier's emotions, prevent them from panicking and engaging in friendly fire or needless massacres. It's all controlled by the system's core AI. It artificially controls the soldier's pain, emotion, senses. In other words, the essence of his being.
1991, the Gulf War. The military secretly injected soldiers with the soldier genes. The Gulf War syndrome that hundreds of thousands of returning soldiers complained about was a side effect of it.
Ha! Everyone knows that the Gulf War syndrome was caused by exposure to depleted uranium used in the anti-tank rounds.
That was just a cover story issued by the Pentagon. First they tried to say it was post-traumatic stress disorder, then chemical or biological weapons. The poison gas detection units and the anti-sarin injections, they were all just a cover-up of the secret genetic experiments.
So then, the so-called Gulf War babies that have been reported by Gulf War veterans are...
Yes. They too are our brothers and sisters.
So the genome soldiers mean that the experiments were a success?
Success? Don't be a fool. They're a complete failure. We are on the verge of extinction.
What?
Sans lingua franca. The world will be torn asunder, and then it shall be free. People will suffer, of course, a phantom pain. The world will need a new common tongue, a language of nukes. My metal ears shall be the thread by which all countries are bound together in equality. No words will be needed. Every man will be forced to recognize his neighbor. People will swallow their pain. They will link lost hands. The world will become one. This war is peace.
People point at the nuclear arms and space races and call it a Cold War. I say if they're not shooting at each other, why not call it world peace?
6. Metagear. The last form of betrayal we'll cover here has to do with subverting expectations for the Metal Gear series itself. As the saga went on, people developed certain expectations of what to expect. Kojima, from Guns of the Patriots to Death Stranding, has seemingly taken more and more joy in promptly smashing or twisting our expectations in order to always stay relevant. MGS4, for example, asked if endless, mindless mass productions and regurgitations of the Metal Gear ethos was really worth wanting, by giving us all the typical Metal Gear form, but none of the substance. Snake had battled harsh climates and terrifying enemies before, but MGS4 pitted him against an unexpected yet perfect new challenge. One worse than ever before, his own rapid obsolescence. By making Snake old, MGS4 could use the same old characters and story beats to uniquely depict the rapid process of aging in video games culture and the wider information age. If you think about it, we change phones, computers, and game consoles at ever faster rates. Old Snake subverted the primary expectation for new technology to always look and feel new, as if they represented a French Revolution-style year zero. The past only matters when it's capable of slipping away, this suggests. When the body dies, something genuine is lost with it. All of this wisdom MGS4 subverted expectations to convey. This was yet another grim reality the public needed to hear, one that went against, yet again, our most prominent prevailing assumptions and modes. MGS4 had the audacity to witheringly excoriate the high-tech, micro-pharmaceutically driven 21st century to challenge the core notions of modern progress and peace.
Qu'est-ce que la vie sans la mort? Qu'est-ce que la mort? Une vie ennuyeuse. La vie est surfaite. La mort. Pieuvre armement. Attraction irrésistible.
But really, this provocateur side to the series went back to at least Metal Gear Solid 1, when we had learned in reality the threat of nuclear terrorism has, since the end of the Cold War, only increased. That nuclear waste remains dangerous for multiple reasons and over many, many years. We also saw this in Sons of Liberty, when the shadowy digital overlords, the Patriots, exposed modern life in all its pedestrian, trite power to drown and suffocate.
世界のデジタル化は人の弱さを助長し、それぞれだけに都合のいい真実の生成を加速し、社会に満ちる真実の山を見てみる。
高価な兵器が人道的に人を殺し、
犯罪者の人権は被害者のプライバシーより丁重に扱われ、
希少動物保護の寄付金が集まる傍らで貧困に苦しむ人たちがいる。誰もがこう言われて育つわ。
他人には優しくしよう。
でも競争相手は叩きのめせ。
お前は特別だ。信じていれば夢は叶う。
だけど成功できる人間が一部だけなのは初めから明らかよね。
君たちが自由を行使したこれが結果だ。争いを避け傷つかないようにお互いをかばい合うための機弁、政治的正しさや価値相対化という綺麗事の名のもとにそれぞれの真実がただ蓄積されていく。
衝突を恐れてそれぞれのコミュニティに引きこもり、ぬるま湯の中で適当に甘やかし合いながら好みの真実を垂れ流す。
噛み合わないのにぶつからない真実の数々、誰も否定されないがゆえに誰も正しくない。
ここでは淘汰も起こらない。世界は真実で飽和する。
それが世界を終わらせるのだ。緩やかに。
私たちはそれを食い止めてあげようっていうの。
我々には支配者としての責任があるからな。
This subversion of prevailing norms, this twisting of the mirror back on the observer, would all remain integral to Kojima's process, from the ruse cruise surrounding the Phantom Pain and Silent Hills, all the way up to 2019's difficult to categorize or define Death Stranding. From that game all the way back to the original Metal Gear in 1987, Hideo Kojima has always loved lying to us, lying to make a point. Betrayals like his tap into the medium's latent power, often ironically to expose that very power itself. This approach uses gameplay in a direct, unmediated way, neither showing nor telling precisely, but involving the player in the story via the interaction and feedback-driven reciprocity of the gameplay. In this regard, Kojima remains a very important and influential master of false realities. Here's hoping his next game gives us all a real surprise. Until next time, boss.
Rose, does she actually exist?
Of course I do, Jack. You have to believe it.